I know. Oh, it's already started. Here, come here. Come on up here. Yeah, that's your friend Jessie. You know her. You met her 100 times.
Does he miss call out when she's not here?
Yeah. Annie needs to show off for whoever's around as part of it. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 48 of From the Van. It's a podcast from my van, where I have conversations with people who have relationships with residential vehicles. I'm your host, Marty Benson, and today's episode features Jessie Leonard. She's a fascinating young lady from the wine country in Northern California, Napa to be exact, and she's living in a 99 Dodge conversion van with her giant, young puppy of a German Shepherd, Shasta. We had a really good conversation about sort of her ambition to move around the country, doing work while also finding the place that she wants to end up. I feel like that's a theme that we hear a lot from people who are moving around in vans. It's sort of like, I want to see places, I want to travel, but also I'm eventually going to want to settle down somewhere, and this is a really good vehicle, pun intended, for figuring out how to where you're going to be. So that's sort of what she's up to. We had an interesting conversation about her job and finding that job. It took her quite a long time to find the job that she's got right now, but she seems to have a really good idea of how she's going to port that into something that's a little bit more lucrative and a little bit more aligned with what she wants to do. I hope that you enjoy episode 48 of From the Van, featuring Jessie Leonard. Jessie, I don't know your last name.
Leonard.
Yep. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Where are you from?
I'm from Napa, California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stayed around in NorCal. We moved around a little bit, but pretty much Napa's the hometown.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of it. They have wine.
Lots of wine.
And auto parts.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that too.
What brings you... So we're in San Diego County right now.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in your van?
Since end of August.
Okay.
So I think we're coming up on 6 months now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What put you in there? Why are you in it?
Well... The main idea was just to travel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 25, so there's still a lot that I know I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now, like, that I've been in it for so long, you get like random realizations about your life, kind of, because you just have all the time to think. But
yeah, like what?
well, just I guess certain things about like childhood, like I don't know, things that kind of suck that you like repress a little bit, and then. Yeah, just kind of the ways it manifests as you like get older and how you like interact with people.
Well, don't say anything that you don't want to say, but I'm fascinated by this, so I would love it if you expand on that.
Well, so I've always kind of had a like weird relationship with my mom. It kind of started when my parents got divorced when I was 13, and just diving right in. But
yeah, go for it. That's what this is about.
Yeah. Well, so she basically, I found out just a couple years ago that I found out about the divorce before my dad did, like a couple months before, and because he said that he found out or that she had kind of told him that that's what she wanted like a month before they sat me and my brother down, and my mom mentioned it to me like 2 months or 3 months before that. But so she was kind of on this like whole. Like, I guess, I don't know, she kind of got pushed back to this, like, teenage phase where she's dating and having a fun time, but I was 13 and also sort of going through that, or, like, maybe figuring out what I wanted to do with that. And the whole time, there was this kind of resentment that was, like, slowly growing towards her because she introduced me and my brother to every single one of her boyfriends. Oh. And whether we saw them again or not, we met everyone. So... that was really weird for us. My brother's 4 years younger than me, so of course I take on the protector, and that's a whole nother thing that I like figured out about myself. But in terms of like all that stuff, though, with the divorce, my dad made it very clear that we were like number one priority. I only met 2 of his girlfriends, and 1 he's married to now. So in the first one was an accident. We weren't supposed to meet, and he actually broke up with her because she didn't want to fall in love with him more by meeting the kids. And so my dad's like, we're a package deal, you can't have me without them, and ended things. And that's the woman right before he met my stepmom. So So that kind of, I did go to counseling for it and for like that kind of side of things in college. It was really awesome. They offered free counseling with these like graduate students that needed like a certain amount of hours, but so they were really talented, but just weren't like licensed therapists yet. Sure. But and yeah, I talked to her about it after I kind of worked things out a little bit. But so now like I feel like that I've been in the van, I've understood where she was coming from. Like where I don't know, just a lot more forgiveness kind of comes out, but also knowing that like there's certain things we need to work through. So even since college, we can't really spend more than like 5 days together. And in July, I spent 3 weeks with her, and the night before I left was like a huge blow up. So it's funny, like a few days before that, I was like, wow, this is really good. Like, because it had been a few years since our last big fight. And I was like, I guess we can like spend more time together, which is like all I want. But then we had another, just like big blow up about, it was a huge miscommunication about something that doesn't even matter anymore. Like it was like so dumb, and I like always kind of try to take the high road, and she doesn't usually. She takes things very personally and reacts really quickly and says things that are just completely out of line. We had this one fight when I was in college, when we were in Colorado, and it was just her and me on this trip, and so I couldn't leave if like she said something, and she says I kind of say something a little snarky and sarcastic, and she immediately like says, because I was having issues with some girlfriends in college, and she was like, this is why none of your friends like you. And I was like a 19, 20-year-old, like
Escalate
tears, like immediately tears. And I walk and like take a little like loop. We were on this hike, so there was this extra little loop, but like it was like at the very beginning too. Like the hike hadn't even started yet, and this happened. And it was on like the second day of the trip out of like a 4-day weekend. And so I was just like, okay, suck it up. Like she apologized. But I could usually like there was this other fight that happened like a year before, and I had to like, I didn't talk to her for like 4 days. So I was like, I can't do that now. Like I'm in another state with her alone. We have to like, I have to just suck it up and like, and we just kind of didn't really talk about it. So, after what happened this summer, my dad said like, you guys should probably go to counseling together. And, I took a week after I was home back in Napa finishing my van. I just wanted to like think about it, and also not like make it seem that my dad had told, because she like gets really weird. I think she doesn't fully understand or like that me and my dad are really close. We're like he knows everything about me, like all the weird details of my life. Like he pretty much knows everything. And I think that kind of rubs her the wrong way, because I think she wants that relationship with me, but at the same time doesn't really put in the work for it. But yeah, again, she's kind of doing her own thing. She's learning a lot of stuff on her own. So, so the nice thing about this is I feel like I have had a little bit given her in my head kind of this a little bit of forgiveness. Good. So even if
are you communicating? So that was in July, the like good 3 weeks followed by the like
big blow up,
super bad moment there.
Yeah, we do. We talk like once a week.
Okay.
It's not about like anything super like in depth, like. I don't know. I do ask her for help with like, I just did like a website relaunch. So she's used to edit all my papers in college. So I just sent her stuff just to make sure my like grammar was right. Sure enough, there were a couple typos in there, but, and like formatting, she kind of helped me with, just to make things make sense for people visiting. So like certain professional things we talk about, but, and she'll sometimes ask me about like my dating life and things like that, but it's never like, I have way more deep conversations with my dad and stepmom and that than I do with my mom. And great. Like I love my stepmom too. She's definitely taken up certain things that have been kind of left to the wayside with my mom. So, that's been great. I actually married my stepmom and my dad this summer. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, I was the officiant. It was great.
Cool.
Everyone cried. It was in the best way. But
they had been together for a while.
3 years at that point. Yeah.
Was your mom when you were? I take it that you were living with your dad primarily.
Yeah. I lived with him
as
for
a like older.
Well,
kid
in high school, no, it was back and forth, 50-50.
Oh, okay. So she was close, and you guys were in the same town or whatever.
Yeah. I think at one point maybe max lived like 20 minutes apart, but yeah, pretty much like they still talk. 'Cause my brother's younger and he's going to college, but I don't know. That's the funny thing I learned like later in life. Like if you have a kid with someone, they are going to be in your life the whole time, even if you guys aren't together. Like because you have to deal with that kid together. But
my dad has, I've had a number of relationships, all of which, I mean, aside from the current one, have failed. And one of the things my dad always says is, man, he's like, you can get married, you can buy a car or a house or something like that, but when you have a kid, it's permanent, you know? And he and my mom are still together, but one of the things that you say about, you know, spending 3 good weeks with your mom and then, like, having this super traumatic but meaningless blow up at the very end, I find that happens with my parents a whole lot. And I don't know to what degree it is them being scared for me or scared for themselves or disappointed in my various life decisions or whatever, you know, but it's so bizarre because it regularly happens that whether the visit is 3 days or a week and a half or whatever, it's just like this anxiety makes shit go south at the very last moment.
Yeah,
for
it's always
no
the last
fucking
one.
reason,
I used to do it too a little bit. Like when I'd go to college, I'd pick a fight with my younger brother, like at the end of the summer or the winter break, or even like with my dad. And it's like something I was unconsciously doing to make goodbye easier because I went to college across the country in Florida. So like,
I don't want to be around you anyway.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, to make it so that much easier just to like leave and not see them for 3 months. And because I never went home for Thanksgiving because they only gave us 4 days to like have break. So like 2 of those days would have been traveling all the way to California. But I think that's something I learned from maybe my mom, maybe my dad. I don't really know. I don't know who I could blame it on, but I've become more aware of it. So I do try to like take a step back and watch that. I do get a little bit of like hot-headed too and critical. So I do try to take a step back from that. But it's good to be aware of that. One of my most consistent low moments, I think, especially with Colette, is that, and I find that, you know, sort of, I guess everybody does this, but when I feel like when she's in a bad mood, I'm strong for a little while, and then when she turns into a good mood again, then I'm like, I have this hangover from it or whatever, you know, and it turns me into a jerk, and I hate that. And and when I see that I'm doing it, it's great if you can see that you're about to pick a fight with somebody because you're gonna have to leave them or something, and head that off and just not do it, and be more honest about like the feelings that you're actually feeling, which is, this sucks, I'm gonna miss you, but I'm excited to go do what I'm gonna do. Right? Well, so where were you? You're 25. Where were you before the van? How did the van come to be? Well, right after college, so it was 3 years ago. I started seeing it on Instagram, but I thought I was dating at the time, so I thought that would be a fun thing for him. And he was younger though, so we were going to have to wait like 3 years until he graduated college because I was a senior and he was a freshman. But I think we like saw it, thought it was cool, but I wanted to travel internationally, and because I hadn't done that at all, I really wanted to go abroad for a semester. I'm glad I didn't, because most of my friends who did were behind because they didn't offer the same classes when they were abroad. And I graduated in 4 years, which was like the best thing ever. But so I wanted to get that kind of checked off my list, see a few things abroad, and then start my career. So actually, the plan, I was working in wine for like after college up until I moved into the van, and
as that you do when you grow up in Napa.
Yeah, exactly. And once I'd kind of done, I went to India 6 months after graduating college, and then went to, I think I did like a little road trip at a Mini Cooper, so I drove up the Pacific Northwest and then came back down. It was like 3 weeks, and I also visited my mom in Sandpoint at that time too. But then, in 2018. I went to Australia, New Zealand, and Bali, and it was great. That was all only for a month too, so that was kind of the downside of work. Like obviously, when you're working, you can only take so much time off. But I did have a pretty good gig. Any person I talk to doing tastings, I tell them like where I can just come back from or where I was planning on going like soon. And because the wine industry is busiest around harvest, which is in fall.
Okay.
So after December, is like basically, I would basically have 4 months of time that I could, they'd only really give me a month. I'm sure if I asked for more, they would have been fine with it. But also, like, you just get broke after a while, so you have to come back and keep working.
I didn't know that about wine. You're on the same schedule as the Emerald Triangle.
What's that?
Weed.
Oh, okay.
Like up in Humboldt, Mendocino, Eureka and all that.
It's the same season?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I mean, harvest season is always fall, right?
Yeah,
but like,
that's true.
Everybody that I used to know who was like participating in the Northern California weed thing, they would like work real hard in late summer through fall, and then they'd be like
done the rest
jet setting out in Colombia or something.
Well, that's the big thing in like people who, when you said the triangle thing in wine, a lot of people will work in Napa, France, and Australia and do that
so you can bounce
year
around.
round. Yeah, so people do that for like years. They'll travel to those different places like 4 months at a time. And maybe they'll switch to like Italy instead of France or New Zealand instead of Australia, but everyone always comes back. So there's a lot, it's really cool because there's a lot of international people in Napa. A lot of, they're like interns, they're not getting paid much, and the wineries usually like house them and feed them and just they like learn.
If it'll get you to a new...
Yeah, I wanted to, I might still get into it because I love the industry. Like, I mean, wine's delicious and the whole like process of it I found really fascinating. And eventually I was thinking about going to New Zealand, like living in a van there and bringing my dog with me, and working in wine because that's a big industry there too. So we're talking about getting into the van, right? I like get on tangents.
That's good.
So after I'd finished traveling, in my head like was kind of done for now of traveling internationally, at least to the places that it was like affordable. I was actually going to move to San Diego a year ago, and everything was falling through. Like, nothing was working out. Jobs I was applying to, trying to find roommates. Any like lead I had would say, sorry, we're going with someone else. Or especially with jobs, like it's really hard to get a job someplace if you don't live there because they see the address. And even though I was trying to work in wine or maybe beer, but here, like, it's so competitive getting into beer, so like I didn't really have a chance there. But most wineries weren't getting back to me, even though like it said Napa on my resume. So that, just nothing was working, and I think popped up again on Instagram and was like, oh, this is a good option. And it was just kind of perfect time because I was kind of tired of working in wine, at least at the place I was at. I would go back to working in wine, just the winery I was working for. It was very upscale, and you kind of have to kiss a lot of ass, and I just wasn't I got tired of it, and I started losing my filter, and I can pull up. Can I swear? I mean, I already kind of did, but I can pull up resting bitch face really fast,
right?
Which helped me a lot in India. But when you're trying to work in customer service, it's not so great. I do. If you look up the winery's name, you can find a couple bad reviews under my name, completely like validated because I was following. They were all about like we didn't allow children, and so some parent was like, my little angel wasn't allowed there, like, and Jessie like wouldn't let us in, like things like that. So that was honestly the funniest part of my job was having like bad reviews written about me. But I was just tired of that environment. It was very competitive, and because it also was a high-end winery, there was a lot of like that kind of classy, or I don't even want to say entitlement for sure. But even like my coworkers were all they were about like brands, and like there was one guy I worked with who I love, but like he said I only drink wines over 95 points. So there's like a whole point system. I don't know if you know, or like whatever, but like it's. Like, if you get over 95 points, it's really great, but also those wines tend to be over $100 a bottle. So, in some of them, he had an insane wine collection, and a lot of them were over, like, he probably had a couple that were like $1,000. He used his credit card a lot for that. So I don't even want to know what his credit card statements looked like. But a lot of people see it as like a future investment, but he also did drink like, you can sell that for a lot more money. But at the same time, I think he did drink it for a lot of the time. But so just tired of that world.
So what kind of van are you in?
I'm in a 99 Dodge conversion van. It's a Ram 1500. Can
you stand up in it?
No. I know people who can in those kinds of vans. I'm 5'8", so I think people I know who can stand in those are like shorter than like 5'4", 5'3". It's nice because it's more room than a cargo van like Christian's, but I can't fully stand up. But I can stand up to change. I have to like bend my head like this.
I've been doing it for a year and a half, man. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. For sure. And let's talk about Shasta. How old is she?
She's 10 months. I was doing the math wrong. I thought she was like 9 months now, but I was like, she's 10 months now.
So she was a baby when you moved into the van.
Yeah, she was 4 months old, I think.
Yeah, she's like lifetime van dog.
Yeah, she is. She only really knows that. She is horrible in houses. She doesn't know what to do with all the space. And she's like not really house trained. Like she's potty trained in the van and in her crate, but there's so much room in a house. Like
it feels like it's outside.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, here's a carpet. I'm gonna go here. She started getting better towards the end of Christmas like break sort of that I was having up in Napa to see my family. So, but like the first few times I was like, sorry, Mom.
I feel that way. I slept in my parents' house when I flew back right before Christmas for a few days, and I slept in this giant room without my dog and without my girlfriend, and I couldn't sleep, man. Yeah. The walls were so far away.
Yeah. When I was there, I drove my van up there so I could sleep in it, and there was one night it was in the mechanics overnight, and so I was forced to sleep in the house with my dog, and I didn't get any sleep because also it reminded when I was living with my dad, I shared a wall with him and my stepmom, and they usually stay up until 11 watching the news, and I go to bed because she wakes me up at 6 a.m. or sometimes 5:30 in the morning. I go to bed between 9:30 and 10, so I sort of drift off, and then the TV comes on and I wake up again, and then Shasta's barking because she wants to go hang out with my parents. Luckily, the issue when I was living with my dad and sharing a wall with my dad and stepmom was the noises. There's times I had to say, guys, or like the next morning, because obviously like they don't keep their phone by their bed, and they're definitely not paying attention to that while they're doing that. But like the next morning I'd be like, yeah, you guys should have played music. Like, and there's been times where I hear the music, like after I reminded them, they would turn the music on. I'm like, okay, I'm going for a beer. Like I'm not going to even be in the house because I don't even want to know what's going on right now, but I'm happy for them because that means like they're in love and they're enjoying themselves. But sharing the wall, like having the rooms adjacent was really intense. Not great. So
that's super intense. Yeah. I have never been in that position with my folks. They like each other, I think, but I'm happy to report that I haven't experienced it firsthand.
It's not great.
So she's a German Shepherd. What does she weigh?
I think she might be 80 pounds now.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's still growing.
She is.
How is it being in the van with her?
When I can get her exercised, it's fine because she will just kind of nap when we're not out at the park or on a hike. But when I was up in Bend, Oregon, and I had to like work at an actual job, and if this shift was a little weird, I couldn't take her to the dog park twice a day. I can only do once. Excuse me, God. Anytime I drink beer, I start burping. But and she was in her more teeth, like she does still kind of teeth, like she'll chew on things, but it's more out of boredom, but she was still kind of teething at that point, so it was just worse. Most of the damage in the front of my van is from when I was working and couldn't get her out all the time. Like seats are in shreds. The upholstery, like this is like decent because it's like all plastic. Mine has this like fabric kind of front to it around like the handles. She's ripped the fabric off and started like pulling at like little foamy pieces off of it. The seat, like the driver's seat, the foam can completely come out because she stripped the fabric off and was able to like get the cushion off. So I can still put it back and sit on it. But there are points where there's like springs. So I keep a blanket next to it to like add to the cushioning.
Just in case you get stabbed or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a project when she kind of calms down, because I don't see the value right now in like replacing all that if she's just going to tear it up again.
Don't bail water out of a sinking boat, right?
Yeah. But, and of course, and I'm sure there might be comments on this too, I've tried the sprays. They don't work. I've tried 2 different ones. They'll deter her for a day, and then like it goes away, and she goes at it again if she's not like tired enough. So, it was funny because she was at first targeting my seat in my area because she was like, my mom didn't take me on a walk.
Pissed at you.
Yeah, she was targeting like my stuff, and countless shoes have been destroyed.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I think she's eaten 10 pairs of my underwear. I know you said Colette keeps her underwear in the
glove box.
Yeah. It's only dirty underwear, which is the grossest part. But usually I can keep them like away, so there hasn't been any underwear casualties in a while. But
isn't it weird that they call it a glove box? When was the last time someone wore gloves? Unless it was just cold.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know my mom used to keep gloves in her
glove box?
I don't know if she put it in the glove box or like in the little like cup holders. She should have put them in the glove box because that's what it's named and what it's for, or it used to be for. So But I can't even reach mine because the van's so wide. I have to like scoot into, I have this little platform built so that Shasta, since she's so big, can sleep across like the middle and the passenger seat.
Okay.
And I was like anticipating it. When I got her, she would sleep in the middle because she wanted to like have her head, or like she wanted to be close to me, but now she just takes up the whole thing. But I have to like sit on that to get into my glove box because it's just so far away.
What sort of gear, amenities, and whatnot do you have in the van? I know you got a Max fan.
I do have a Max fan. I have two 100-watt panels with 200 amp hour batteries. I don't have a Dometic. I just didn't want to splurge that much, so I found like an off-brand one that seems to be working great, and it was like $300.
Awesome.
And I don't have lights in my ceiling because I figured like I was gonna be outside all the time, and I just have string lights and keep it bright enough. And if I want to read, I have a headlamp that I should put on when I'm reading. And then in terms of appliances, I've wired like a little outlet next to my bed so I can charge like a little USB thing. But in terms of like gear, like adventure gear, is that sort of? But
no, I was just thinking about like vehicular habitation sort of stuff.
Yeah, just very bare bones. And it's funny, I haven't used my fridge or my fan. Oh, I do have a water pump, which like a lot of people go for like the hand pump or the foot pump, and I found a pump for like $15, and I was like, I can figure out how to wire it, put a little switch on it, and it's the simplest thing ever. And
so do you have a sink, or you just have a little spigot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I have a sink. It's pretty big, honestly. Like, probably, all the reviews or like videos people made on YouTube, one of the biggest complaints was how small their sink was. So I made sure to kind of get one. It's a bar sink. Yeah. It's a square. So I knew I wanted to do like a cutting board kind of thing on top of it. So, yeah.
I made the one in this van out of a salad bowl.
Nice. Yeah, I saw those too, but I didn't know like where I'd find one. I don't know.
But I ordered it off of Amazon, but Colette just picked one up from IKEA for the new van. Bigger van, bigger sink.
Nice, yeah. My sink's massive for the size of my van. Like I'd never do dish. It's actually more like dirty dish storage than to actually, because I don't do my dish. My water pump wasn't working until this week. Like Dave helped me with all my electrical, so everything's working. My fridge is finally running. I thought my batteries were drawn too low and like damaged, so like I'd have to replace them, but they're fine. They're like, today it was at like 14.3 or something, like really high.
Awesome.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
I have cold beer now, and like veggies, because I'm trying to be fully vegan again. Like the fresh vegetables are like the only thing you eat, so not having a fridge was a pain.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I can't even imagine, like, it's so weird, like, straddling these two vans, because we have this van that's completely, like, ready to live in, been lived in, and all of that. And then we've got the excitement about the new van, and it's got a little bit nicer mattress in it, and we're working on it all the time. And so we've been sleeping in it, but then this is parked around the corner, and I'm still using it for all of my, Yeah,
you're cooking, and... Yeah. Are you going to keep this fridge, or just get a new one? And
no, we've got a new fridge coming. Hopefully, when we find a buyer for this van, they're just wanting, like, what it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because and this might be a decent segue. We'll see. I've found, living in the van, that there are all these realizations, and the one that you led with is way more pivotal than anything that I'm about to say. But like, there are all these realizations that like, the things that you think are going to be difficult aren't.
Yeah.
And the things that are difficult are things that you didn't expect. And then even in a more trivial sort of way, but very, very functional, utilitarian sort of way, this thing that you thought went over here doesn't belong here. It belongs over here now. And it might be because you have a dog, or just because of ergonomics or whatever. Oh my God,
yeah, I've had to move things. But like, she's figured out how to open my cabinet. So like, what used to be the food cabinet and one was like the toiletry cabinet, I swapped them because she was getting into my food and eating like a whole loaf of bread and getting into the peanut butter jar and like she has very like dexterous paws because they're webbed, and like their German Shepherds are just so smart. They can like do anything.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So it's like, I think it was like a mix of like turning it, but also just sheer force, just like ripping caps off of things to eat things. She like chewed up my toothbrush once, but yeah, I've had to like move clothes around for her. I feel like most of it is to accommodate her so she doesn't destroy as much stuff. But I did have a couch. Well, I do have like a slide out bed couch thing. It's an L shape. So I kind of wish I did something like this if I did want a couch, because just 2 pieces. Mine is like 5.
Wow.
Like moving all the like cushions like different directions. But then when it was starting to get cold, the cabinet that was holding all my bedding, I was starting to get sweaters and stuff to like stay warm, because I think I only brought, like being from Northern California, it gets cold, but like 1-2 sweaters are really all you need, and then you wear like a jean jacket over and you're fine. But like we were sleeping through like 18-degree nights.
Where?
And in Bend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was there until like mid-November, so it just got really, and it was actually, there was an early snow in September, so it was great seeing Shasta frolicking in the snow, and it was so cute, but I was like not wanting to spend winter in my van. I'm such a wimp, like being born and raised here, like it's just, even Northern California is colder than here, but like it's the best thing that you can move and go someplace warm.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I just thought I didn't have the patience anymore and like I was actually getting like neck pain and back pain from making my couch into a bed and vice versa twice a day. So finally I was like, once I realized that, I was like, it's not really worth it. And then I have all that storage under the bed, so I actually, when I eventually maybe upgrade to a bigger van, I do want to get a ProMaster too, and definitely I'm like all about the fixed bed.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't think I could do like a dinette. I actually would love to do something like Alexa's
Those things
van.
are super cute, but they just, it's just like...
Yeah, I think Alexa did a great job, like having the little thing in front of the bed, and then it can expand if she has. And I think it can be like a king size bed, which is insane. But she's also a tiny human, so like it can stay small, and if there's no other people sleeping in her bed, like it's fine. I feel like I think I'm taller than her. I think she's only like 5'4", 5'5", and I'm almost 5'8". So like I don't know if I could do that small of a bed, but especially with a massive dog,
giant dog.
Yeah.
Well, this bed is a little bit smaller than a full size, and we got so used to just being on top of each other, the 3 of us, that now we have an actual full size bed, and it's like as big as, it feels like a freaking mansion. Yeah, but that's what I was saying about this van, is that like we spent so much time sort of like trying things out in different places, that I feel like there's, and given different people want different things.
Yeah.
But for us, this van couldn't be laid out any better.
Yeah.
And so I'm not taking the fridge out of it unless somebody wants me to.
Yeah.
Because it belongs there.
Yeah.
I do wonder this though, because I've only done 2. Like right when I finished the van, I took a trip up to see some friends in Santa Cruz and San Francisco without Colette, because she was in Germany, and then I drove across the country without her. Both times I had Spin with me, but I wonder if I lived in the van, even with this couch that's pretty easy to turn into a couch after you've been sleeping in it. I wonder if I lived in here by myself, if I would just leave the bed.
Yeah, that's the great thing about being like alone. And I was talking about this with Sydney, like being alone, you can literally just be a piece of shit and just be like dirty dishes. And I haven't, I think it's been like 4 days since I've showered, and like, it's like, you just don't care when you're alone.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess if you're, close enough with someone, then you can kind of just stop caring together. But at the same time, you have a second person to kind of help keep things clean and delegate all the jobs. But for me, it's like, I have to do everything. I have to do my laundry. I have to clean the dishes. Right. If I'm cooking, like that's like one thing that's like cool when you're dating someone. It's like one person cooks, one person cleans, and you switch off and things like that. But it's like, I got to do everything. So just make it a little easier. I'm like, just leave the bed alone. But the storage, I like can't get over like under my bed. Especially like I got Max Tracks for Christmas this year, and those take up like a huge area under my bed.
Oh, those are the things for like getting over hard parts.
I do a bit of like backcountry. Well, not lately, but I do like those backcountry spots. So if I get stuck, like that's a necessity. Yeah.
So what about what were you doing in Bend? What was your job there?
I was working at a tap room, a really weird, it's called the Growler Guys. They're in like gas stations and stuff. The first one was the one I was working at. It's just like a growler fill station, and then you can get pints and like a whole flight, and it's cool because they do have beers from all over the country. Where I worked, there was like 40 beers on tap, and some of them were international too. So as my first beer job, that was a really great learning place, because I had no experience. I knew what I liked, and because I worked in wine, I could kind of already pick up tasting notes. So I started working on that. It took a few months when I was working in wine, but like it translates pretty well. Your palate just kind of develops, but mostly it took like a month or so to get that job, because I came in shoulder season, but like summer is, I think summer and winter are their peak seasons because they are so, like, that town's so outdoorsy. There's people going mountain biking and Smith Rock's right there, so it's a huge rock climbing place, and even like slacklining. I slackline a bit, so I'm trying to get into highlining, but so that's like a huge thing in the summer, and then in the winter, obviously, like all those winter sports. It's a huge, like, it's a cool community of mostly young people.
Yeah.
And being
I
in
hear
Napa,
great
like,
things about.
I love it. Like I'm gonna go back there this summer because I went like late summer and started getting cold pretty quickly, so I want to hope I might start heading up there towards like April.
Did you go up there straight from
Napa?
Straight from Napa?
Yeah, I went to Descend on Bend. That was like the first. That was the first weekend of being in the van. I went there. I was trying to get going and make my way slowly up there the week before, but of course my van breaks down like the weekend I was moving in. Oh, no. So I had to tow it back. This whole drama about I was like 2.5 hours away. AAA wouldn't drive me, like no one would pick me up, so I had to call a private tow company, and luckily I was mostly reimbursed, but I was like 10 miles over the 100-mile limit, but I don't even think that was like the reason why they wouldn't pick me up. It was 5 o'clock on a Saturday, and like I think just no one wanted to drive out there.
Yeah, sure.
So I had to spend like $750 out of pocket, and they didn't even guarantee that I would get reimbursed, but I was just like, I'm so stressed. I just want to get home. I want to go to my mechanic because he had looked over it 2 days before and said it was okay to drive. So I brought it back to him, and he cut a break on like what the cost of labor was, because like, and that was actually, I don't know if I'll bring it back to them because it happened again this Christmas. I was leaving.
Oh boy.
There was a sound. And
the same people.
Yeah. Oh. And they're like really cheap, and I've had huge issues with mechanics before. Yeah. But they're just so nice, and I've just had really asshole mechanics because I'm a chick, and it's funny because a lot of my girlfriends, they don't have the same issue, but I don't know what it is about me if I like put off this energy to these man mechanics and they just treat me like dirt. Like there was this one with my Mini Cooper, I could only go to one mechanic in my town that did international cars, and anytime I took it in, like all this attitude, and there was one time there was a pretty big issue, and it was like chugging its way to the mechanic. Like it was not good. And I come in, he's like, do you have an appointment? And I'm like, it's a mechanic, not a doctor's office. But I was like, I don't need it back. I just need it fixed. Like, take your time. And he was like, oh, okay. And that like made him calm down a little bit. But I think he thought I was just this like prissy girl just wanting this, my Mini Cooper fixed overnight. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, no, just please, I just can't have it at the house. I need you anytime you can. And he actually fixed it in 2 days. So it's like he made all this huge deal about like me bringing it in without an appointment, and I'm like, and I said, I was like, it was I was like, this literally happens today. It's an emergency. It's not an oil change. Like I'm not going to call and say if you can take me for an oil change. Like it's something that happened, but yeah.
You want some water,
buddy?
Come here.
Yeah, that's why I kept taking it to them though. They're just so nice and like genuine, and he also like explains to me like he'll like show me the part that was like not working, and like he had to replace, and like why he had to replace it and things like that. So being like, he's so genuine outside of like maybe not being the most skilled now that I've learned. So I probably won't bring it back to him. But I kind of know, like I know a little bit more about my van, and so that's the like the lessons you learn and through that. But yeah.
Right. So you recently got a remote job, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
I do social media managing for this firm out in Florida, and I do have my own client. It's really not much. It's like about $500 a month just for them, and then I make like kind of a normal part-time salary for this firm. Okay. But yeah, so it took 6 months. Like I started looking before. I think I did start looking for a job before I was in the van. Yeah.
Yeah, this is how it goes.
But yeah, over 150 jobs applied to.
Holy crap! Really?
Yeah, it's super competitive, and I was only searching on Indeed. So many other people will go through different job sites, but then I did actually like Indeed made it too, and I think other job sites do this too. But just the easy send out that, like you fill out the application, you put all of your your experience, all your skills, and it will like kind of filter out certain like alerts would pop up saying like, oh, it doesn't look like you're qualified for this job, would you like to still apply? And so if I saw that, and if it was something that was just like different wording, I would go back to my resume and like add in those things that it said I didn't have. Yeah. Because there's like 50 different ways you can say like communications or things like that. So like those random skills that like basically just all translate.
Indeed. I don't even know about this.
Indeed.com.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
I haven't been looking for a job super hard lately, but I'm about to, so that's good to know.
Yeah, and it's nice because so what I learned after a few months was that because they send you updates after 2 weeks to kind of tell you how many people, they tell you how many people applied. They'll ask, and some of them do actually, some jobs actually, I had an update today saying like, thank you for applying for this job, but they've moved forward with the hiring process and you didn't make it past this like level or whatever. So I'm the kind of person that's like, I want to get bad news. Like, I don't want to just be like, I don't want to hear anything. It's like, tell me that I didn't get it.
Yeah,
then I can,
move on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really nice for those jobs that do kind of update their Indeed. But they also say how many people applied. So they do it like a 2-week update and they give you the numbers. And most of them are over like 650.
Wow.
The majority of them are at like 2,000 applicants. So the job I got actually, there were 2,000 people who applied to my job. And once I started noticing at first how many people were applying to these jobs, I started setting updates. And it was also just because I was on Indeed every single day. So it kind of cut my work out of like my daily kind of routine. I'd get an email saying like, these are the new jobs that have been listed on Indeed for the day. And if there's something that they gave like very brief synopsis of what the job was. And if it looked interesting, I'd tap on it, read the rest of the details and save it.
Yeah.
And because Indeed saved my resume, and I keep a few different copies of cover letters in my Google Docs, and just like copy and paste it if it's required. So if it looked like something I really wanted to do and knew, like obviously if someone gets 2,000 people applying to their job, they're not going to look through all those applications.
Sure.
So they'll probably look through maybe 200, but that's also kind of excessive still. It's probably 100. So being like one of the first people to apply I think that's how I got this job. I got the update, sent the email.
Like on it immediately.
Yeah. So, but I am also trying to, because my rate for social media management is actually higher than, oh, hi buddy. it's higher than what I'm getting paid for this job. So I'm trying to find my own clients, and a lot of the people I'm like making content for are like lawyers and insurance brokers and all these like very uninteresting things. And there was actually one's like is a bail bonds like company.
And what do you want to be doing?
I studied environmental studies in college, so I'm really passionate about, especially if I'm working.
You're being very disruptive.
So rude.
Do you think that this is how a man dressed in a tuxedo all day, every day should act? I don't think this is how a man in a tuxedo should act. My apologies.
It's all good. I have a dog, I understand.
This only happens all the time. So you want to be
if I'm going to work for like other brands, I want it to kind of like to be companies that I would purchase from.
Sure.
Or like things that I would like, that I find interesting. So I'm sending out proposals to, like I actually got an email back today from a winery. They asked for what my rates were. I might not be in their budget, but it's just good that I got someone to respond. But
sure.
So since I have a background in wine, that'd be a great thing for me. But also, like the brand I work for now is a skincare brand, all natural and stuff like that. So, but like cruelty free and not natural like ingredients and just good for the planet, like things like that. Those are really easy things for me to talk about and like write content for. So. That's definitely what I'm kind of moving towards. But like long-term goals, I do want to write like articles for online magazines about like environmental issues or even like social issues. Because recently I'm very empathetic. So I've become very aware of all the like horrible things that are going on in the world to certain like groups of people. It's something I kind of ignored for a while, like, cause I have the privilege of doing that, but I've kind of just been tired of like, I don't know, everything. There's so much stuff going on that just sucks. So if someone actually suggests that I should work for like the ACLU, and I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer, but like maybe if they need like a writer but I don't know, maybe once I get more experience and like stuff in my portfolio, that'd be good. Because right now, the only writing I really have is I write blog posts for that skincare brand, like twice a month usually. And then I also write for my own blog. And I have a couple pieces I want to start writing for Medium, and hopefully that like takes off a little bit because you can actually get paid through Medium. But
cool.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, in terms of ambition, with the whole van thing, you said you want to go back up to Bend this summer, but what after that? What else?
Well, before that, I'm hoping to leave this area in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, if just with money. Obviously, gas money is the only way you can get out of any place. So
yeah, that's true.
But I'm wanting to go up to Ventura, Ojai, and then Joshua Tree, and then start making my way into Arizona and all those deserty places, because with Shasta I can't. She has such a black. I mean, you have black dog. Her
you
coat,
don't want to be there when it's hot.
No, and the van actually stays pretty cool, and you learn the kind of the temperature management. But I just don't want to put her through that. And also, I love going to places in the off season. So
for sure,
yeah, that's my favorite. Whenever I would travel internationally, that's how I made a plan of where I was going. When I went to India, it was the off season, and it was so chill. It also wasn't hot. It's so weird that people travel to India in the hottest time of the year, and it's miserable. So I was there. It was still pretty warm. It was this temperature, but it was November, and it was great. But
yeah, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
January, February in San Diego County is my favorite time of the year.
I can't imagine staying here in the summer.
It's not even that hot.
Really?
In Encinitas, it's not. But we're going to. Colette's got a gig for a little short, month and a half gig in LA in May and June. And I used to live in LA in an apartment.
Yeah.
And I am not. The good news is it doesn't get real hot until July.
Yeah.
But by real hot, I mean 100.
Yeah.
Still 80.
It's just that there's a lot more concrete, I feel there too, and it just bakes.
Well, and it's way more inland. Right here, we've got this microclimate where for the first mile as you go inland, 84 degrees is really hot for us in the summer.
Yeah.
And then, LA's 12, 14 miles inland when you're talking about Hollywood, and her gigs in Glendale.
Yeah, I think it's going to get...
So it's way different.
I haven't been to Bend, obviously, in the summer yet, and I think it does get up to 90, so...
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm going to have to kind of keep things... Luckily, I know people who live there, so I can, be hey, Shasta needs to be inside. Can I come use your AC? Or I do want to go up to Washington. So, yeah, that's kind of... I'm probably, when I'm leaving here, going to go through Arizona, maybe, Utah, New Mexico, just do those states, and then work my way towards Colorado, maybe go through Montana into Idaho. I want to go to Sandpoint again. Yeah. Because I love that town. And then go down Washington back to Bend. So that'll kind of be my loop, and do some of the coast of Oregon. So that, if it starts getting too hot, I can just go towards the coast and it's really weird now having this remote job, because before I was, I worked in Bend, I was intending to work here. And then this remote job came through, and the freedom side of it is really weird now, because before I was planning 6 months ahead, because I was I need to know where I am. I need to give myself time to apply to jobs in the area that I am. But one of my good friends, he only plans 2 weeks out in advance. But I'm a bit more OCD about stuff like that, especially just with safety reasons. I want to know where I am. And with Shasta, knowing what we're doing, where I can get her exercised, and also know where I have Wi-Fi so I can do work now. But now it's I kind of know my month, next month, or 2 months maybe max. So it's weird not really knowing.
That's rad. It's super liberating, right?
Yeah, it's a great kind of freedom. I'm surprised I'm not more anxious about stuff like that, because I do get a little bit of anxiety about the unknown. Yeah, I'm a major planner, but I'm starting to let go a little bit more.
Really?
I'm a planner, but I like having a plan, but I'm completely fine deviating from the plan. I'm not so stuck to it. That's not where I get the anxiety. It's more thinking about the future and what could be going wrong. I have a whole I'm working on it. I just think about things so much that I have to check. I'm working on checking in with myself a bit, being it's okay if that doesn't happen. Don't just be here. I'm trying to meditate again, because that helped me a lot a few years ago. So I need to get back on that.
It's so interesting that you have anxiety about the future, because I feel like anxiety about the future is the main reason that the people that I'm close to who don't think this is a good idea, living in a van, don't think it's a good idea. You know, it's the main That's the main problem that they have with it.
Well, there's a side of it, because one of the side projects of being in the van and like traveling is I want to figure out where I want to end up. And Bend is really high on that list of where I want to move to once I'm done being in the van. But also, it's funny because like that was the first place I went in the van, and I fell in love. And even my stepmom said after, like when I said something about how I really liked the town, I was like, I feel like it's a little premature to say that like the first place I went is someplace I'd love to move and like live long term. But she was like, yeah, I thought about Bend, and I thought like with just the culture there and how it's very young and good restaurants and everything, like she was like, I could see you moving there. But at the same time though, like my dad's from New York, and I went to college in Florida, but I really haven't spent a whole lot of time and I did just I went to Tennessee last year. My stepsister got married out there. So, like, I haven't seen much of the East Coast. So. Yeah. I'm hoping to do fall in New England this year.
Hell yeah.
So that's hopefully on the horizon. But I wanted to do that last year, but of course I was kind of hoping to get the remote job in like September. But
immediately, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. This never works out. Like it takes months and months to find something. But
right. Well, how do the people around? How have the people around you reacted to the van thing?
Family are completely fine with it. Like,
really?
I texted my dad when everything was falling through with San Diego. I think he was at work. It was my day off because we actually worked at the same winery. So he had his 2 days off and I had my own. But I texted him on my day off and was just like, hey, like, I want to talk to you about this, but like, just so you know, like, what if I got a van and moved into it and traveled for the next like year or two, maybe even 3? And he was like, I think it's a great idea. He was like, but we'll talk about it. And he told me, he's like, I'm always going to be scared for your safety, no matter what you do.
Sure,
like, it doesn't matter that you live in a van. But he was like, I think this is a great thing for you right now because you're single, you don't have kids, like you're not in your career yet. Like, this is the best time to do it because you don't have anything to lose and you basically only have everything to gain from what you're doing. So,
wow.
Yeah, he was really,
that's hyper supportive. Great.
He's always said how jealous he is of like what I've done. Like when he would drop me off at my college, and this was probably half a joke, half not, but like my sophomore year, he drops me off in front of my dorm, and there's one guy and 3 girls in bikinis. So he was just like, I did college wrong. So he went to a culinary school in New York. So and he's from upstate New York, and it's just so cold there. So there was no girls in bikinis up there. But then now, like he and whenever I go travel, he's like, because he hasn't really traveled much. We've gone to Mexico a handful of times. Him and my mom did their honeymoon in Belize, so he hasn't gone to Europe. So yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff I think he like sees in my life. He's never seemed to ever want to like hold me back, and I think he is like definitely living vicariously through me a little bit. So I'm also maybe one of the most responsible kids. It's only me and my brother and my stepsister now, but they've never really had to worry much about me. Because you do it
for yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I do it for myself, but also like I was kind of forced to grow up pretty quickly. Like that whole thing with my mom, like that. Really, like, I wasn't really able to be, I was like 40-year-old, like 13-year-old, like, like my mentality at that age was, people always told me I was super mature. I didn't date in high school because I felt like all the guys went to my school were dumb, and it's like, they definitely were. But so yeah, they know I worry enough for myself. They know I'm really careful. Sure. He was I think more worried about me going to India than this.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, and it makes total sense, but at the same time, and I had this whole argument if he was going to be like weird about it, about like stalkers and like getting kidnapped and all this stuff. And so it's like I had this whole argument in my head if he wasn't going to be on board with it, but I didn't even have to use it.
Okay.
So yeah, it was so funny. And even my mom was super into it because she likes to travel. She's definitely pretty like free spirited, so she was into it. She was even like, she has a little red Mini Cooper, and she's like, "You're gonna see my Mini Cooper out like your back rearview mirror," and I was like, "Please don't." I'm good. But it was funny with my coworkers though. They some of them were really jealous of like everything I was doing
at the winery.
Yeah. Some of them were a little confused, but I think for the most part, because it's California, like people are pretty like they've heard. Also, well, the winemaker at the winery I worked at did it in the 70s for 5 years.
Oh wow!
So, and I actually want to go. He lives in Mexico now, on a different, doing a like retirement label basically down in Valle de Guadalupe. And I want to go down and visit him and talk about that because he wasn't a deadhead. I don't know.
Yeah, that's close.
Yeah, well, he wasn't. That's the funny. Oh, from here, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just funny, like, because that's what I do know. know a guy I went to college with, his parents were deadheads, and so they live in Kentucky, so I have this kind of side project of wanting to like hear stories from people who did it back in the day. Yeah, and I found out my dad's cousin, who I call my great godmother because she's my godmother's godmother. She went to Woodstock, so I want to like talk. I'm sure either she did it even for a summer, or like she knows people who did it back then. So yeah, I just want to talk. Even like my mom knows people who like lived in boats back in the day too. Yeah. So I just think it'd be interesting because there's no like. I don't know if I'd make videos. Like I'm not super like the editing thing is like so hard for me to do on YouTube, but I like to write, so maybe I'll make it like a kind of interview based like project. Cool. But yeah, because there's no content really for those older people who used to do it. Like there's so many interviews of people who do it now, but
they're harder to find.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know a woman that did a cross country road trip at least for a year in a Westphalia back in the 60s or 70s, and I've asked her to be on the podcast. And
that'd be cool. Yeah.
There's a guy named Mark Massara who's like one of the sort of godfathers of California Coastal Act environmental activism law. And
what's his name?
Mark Massara.
Okay.
When I met him, it was 2008, 7 or 8, and he then was the Sierra Club's main outreach guy and attorney. Yeah. And he would go to every California Coastal Commission hearing in a suit. But it was a road show, and it happens in a different county, and there are like 6 different districts, I guess, in the coast of California. And he was on the road 2, 3, 4 weeks a month. Doing outreach between these coastal commission hearings, and he was living in a van. You know, he's like the OG guy, and like he didn't have any of this like Dometic refrigerators and all of that stuff. It was really interesting to talk to him, but I'm a coastal policy nerd, so that our conversation didn't have a whole lot to do with the van thing. It was more true. It was more a lecture, like a California Coastal Advocacy 101 sort of thing. But yeah, I'm looking for those folks too. That's super cool that wine guy is sort of expatriated down.
Oh, it's funny because he's from Brooklyn, New York too. So it's like he's a really funny character. And he showed me a photo of him when he lived in his van, like long hair, beard, floral like bell sleeve shirt. It's like so fun. And I think he actually showed me a photo of his van. It was like shag carpet and everything on the inside. It was really funny. But
righteous. All right. Well, is there anything we didn't cover that you think is pertinent to the podcast? We should obviously get your blog.
Oh yeah,
it's my show, but what? But you totally fucked up.
Yeah. Well, no, I just mean it's your show, so like you know all the stuff, the topics I guess to cover. Where do we
find you?
My blog and Instagram is Sand Sun Saltwater. So it's .com for my website. And I don't have Twitter. Yeah, I just spend most of my time on Instagram and trying to write more. I just wrote this piece about like internalized sexism in like being in a van. That's like something because I noticed towards the end of my build, I wasn't taking charge of it. I was relying on my dad and to like help me out because I didn't feel okay to use certain tools because like. Even, like, I love my stepmom. Even she would say, like, she'd get nervous when I mentioned something about the saw. And so that was just, like, stuck in my head about, like, girls and power tools. So it wasn't, and I did most of my cabinets by the end of it. Because if I waited for because he could only work on the van with me once a week. Right. So to actually get things done, it took, like, 4 months to do it. Because for a while, I was just waiting for him to help cut the wood and, like, do these things. And finally, like, I asked my dad, because I said I think I came back from that week, the month with my mom, and he was like, Jessie, like, I can't, he was like, I think the wedding stuff was starting to pick up, and for him and my stepmom, and then trying to prepare for their honeymoon, so he was just like, I can't work on this as much, like, every Sunday for the rest of the month, like, because the wedding's coming, and so I was like, okay, show me how to use the jigsaw, and so finally I, like, did it, and then it, like, popped in my head, I was like, I was the only thing holding me back, and it was everything that I was ever told, like, like, I was, like, forced into it, so, and now, like, I've come across so many women that on my Instagram or I've met in person that have done their own van builds. And one that actually, her name's Whitney Whitehouse. She's a photographer up in, well, now she's in Colorado traveling, but she rebuilt her whole van's engine because it was probably going to cost like $16,000 or whatever, some huge ridiculous number. And it was like 10% of that because she did it herself with her stepdad and like learned it and now like can diagnose everything in her engine. So it was just like, yeah, so that I'm like pretty proud of that piece, but also like I don't know how like articulate it is. I don't know, but at the same time I definitely have imposter syndrome and need to check that. But yeah, that's some things that I write about.
Does it bleed? Well, I mean I always have this question, and I don't feel competent, or I'm scared to ask it, I guess.
Okay.
Is like, does that internalize sexism or overt sexism? Do you see it bleeding into your life in the van, not just in terms of like when you associate with people who are also in vans? I know that
I do get a lot of shock like sometimes because there is, and I've had this question, they're like, do you meet a lot of, or I think someone said like there's not a lot of women alone doing it, it's a lot of couples, right? And I'm like, yeah, it really is. And I'm trying to surround myself with more like solo female travelers because I also do want to create more. I've always been someone who's, for whatever reason, like connects more to guys, but I think there's this like distance because girls get really close, like we talk about everything. So I think there was this thing in my head about that, but there is when I tell people I live in a van, they sometimes say like, well, when they see Shasta, they're like, oh, you're fully protected. Like that's kind of one of the things that they say is like,
you either need a man or a dog.
Yeah,
to protect
exactly.
You, right?
Yeah, and I know so many people like Alexa doesn't have a dog, and I know so many people. I know a lot of women that don't, or that do. I think the majority of women do have dogs, but honestly, I mostly got Shasta as like a companion more than protection. It was just I chose a German Shepherd because there was this added level of protection. She's a sweetheart, but potentially if something happens, she would probably go after someone, but she also has a very deep bark and it scares people off. So that's like one of the big reasons why I got her. But I know a lot of people like Sydney has she has a golden retriever and a chihuahua. So a couple pretty sweet dogs, but I know a few that have like pit bulls and stuff, but I think they're just like rescues. So they they like pit bulls, but I do notice it a little bit, but it was a lot of, at least with the build and certain things like that, it was definitely kind of my own, like things that I was raised with and that I started believing about what my abilities were. And now and I think I was also like, I've always been a very careful person. I'm definitely paranoid about getting injured. I've never, knock on wood, never broken a bone. I've had, sorry, spin. Are you awake now? Oh, hi, buddy.
It's time to party again, huh?
But yeah, so I am paranoid about getting injured, but it didn't help that everyone was like, oh, what about the power tools, the saws, and like things like that. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
No
I'll link
problem.
I'll link your website and your Instagram and the thing. And hopefully I'll be able to hang out. I've been working so hard on the van that I haven't been down here hanging out with you guys lately.
Yeah, we're here pretty much every day. I might start hanging out in Carlsbad a little bit more. I need to shower, so in the next couple days.
What's your gym?
Planet Fitness.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's the closest one.
Is it San Marcos?
I think there is one in San Marcos, but there's one in Carlsbad.
Oh, I didn't know that. We're Planet Fitness and 24-hour, but I like Planet Fitness way better.
Yeah, I might add another gym to that. But yeah, because I hear it, especially like Planet Fitness is so new. It's not. There's more popping up, which is nice. But
if you're going far though, 24-hour doesn't exist outside of the East Coast hardly. I mean the West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, is it Anytime that's more on the East Coast?
Yeah, Anytime's all over the place.
Yeah, I know people who double up with Planet Fitness and Anytime.
Yeah,
but,
those are the two.
Well, I think Anytime is more, because I'm hoping to go to Canada. Maybe. Well, it's like an extra thing if I have time this year.
We got a few Planet Fitnesses when we went through Canada last year, but there weren't a whole lot.
Yeah.
The Nordic Center in Canmore is awesome. You can shower there for $2 and you don't even need a membership.
Cool.
All right, we did it.
All right, guys, we did it. We had a great conversation. It's fun to hang out with Jessie. She's been around town for a while, and we spent a decent amount of time together. Her dog is adorable and mischievous, just like mine. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate that people listen to this podcast. And next week, we will have another episode of From the Van on Tuesday.